Crank up the volume and get ready for real-world bird hunting by listening to the Wingmen podcast by Eastman's. Now your host, Todd Helms.
Talk about being on the X.
Hey guys, today's episode is brought to you by Federal Premium Shot Shells, and I just wanted to give a quick shout out and say thank you to Federal for standing by the Wingmen brand since the beginning. They are our oldest partner, and I can still remember to this day when Brandon Mason told me that they signed a contract and wanted to partner with us. I was so excited because I've been a Federal fanboy forever. I've been using Federal ammunition since way before I was ever involved in the outdoor industry, and I'm a firm believer in every product that they sell, whether it's rifle ammunition, whether it's pistol ammunition, or in the case of Wingmen, shot shells. Everything from their TSS lineup, their turkey shot shells, their high shock lead target loads. Man, everything that they have just absolutely kills it. But I want to highlight one product that they make in particular today, and that is the Federal Premium Speed Shock, or AKA Blue Box. You guys have seen it on the shelves. If you're a waterfowler, you know how awesome good old Federal Blue Box is. If you need a load that you can buy a lot of, buy a couple cases of, and you can afford it, you can buy those cases without breaking the bank, it's Federal Blue Box every single time. My pick, 3-inch number 2s. There's not a situation in waterfowling that I've encountered where I can't cleanly take birds with 3-inch number 2s, especially if I'm being a little picky and shooting stuff in the decoys. But man, I've taken especially Canada geese at some pretty jaw-dropping shots with that Federal Blue Box stuff. It's awesome. It comes in a variety of loads. It comes in a variety of gauges. My pick is the 12-gauge 3-inch number 2s. I've shot everything from pheasants on public property in South Dakota where you had to shoot a non-toxic load, to geese, sandhill cranes, and obviously ducks, mallards, teal, you name it. 3-inch number 2 Federal Premium Speed Shock. It just flat kills. Check it out this fall. I know you won't be disappointed. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Wingmen podcast. I'm your host, Todd Helms, and I have Marty Roberts from Sporting Life Kennels with me today. We were just chatting before I hit record, Marty, about you listened to a podcast. You said you were on your way back from the Dive Bomb Squad Fest this weekend and listened to the episode that we had the good fortune of recording with Dale Bordelon.
Oh, I really enjoyed it. I watch him on Facebook anyway, but it's just fascinating to me how he just takes it all back. And I love how he says the old people. You know,
I know.
They refer to their elders as the old people, and I think that's a Cajun French thing down there. I think
probably.
Yeah. But I loved it. You know, we were talking about his calls and how I want one and you want one. I need to get on the list.
I know. I do too. He is a character, man. That was a super enjoyable conversation, and we had to work pretty hard to make that episode happen because he doesn't have great cell service, great Wi-Fi where he is. He's not real tech savvy, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
But it didn't matter. I was like, if we have to do this over the phone and I record the phone conversation, I'm doing this. And it was...
No, and the thing is about what I enjoy about him is it's sincere. It's not pretend. He doesn't think he's something special. He just is, you know. He just is.
100%.
He is. Well, he's authentic and he loves what he's doing, and it comes across. Now I'm gonna go carve some decoys in a pirogue.
Yeah, exactly. Just get out the ads. Just get out the ads and go knock out a pirogue. You know, just no big deal.
He said the old people would take the ads and he said they would get it 3/4 of an inch all the way around perfectly. And he said, I'm not that brave, but I thought, could you? He said the old ones they just light and you can pull them over anything. I don't know. That's pretty neat stuff though.
Oh, it's a lost a lost art, and there's so much of that, whether it's from down south, way down deep south down there, or the stuff I grew up with in the Great Lakes, or the guys that are doing stuff on the Chesapeake. There's so many stories, so many traditions that are still being carried on to this day.
This is a great waterfowling country, the heritage. And then when you see the different areas, like you're talking about, so much history on the Ohio River and the Illinois River and the Mississippi River, and then Chesapeake Bay, and then up on the Great Lakes, and then Louisiana and Arkansas, where I grew up hunting, and Mississippi Delta, and now I'm really infatuated with the Central Flyway. I just love going out there. We've never hunted birds on dry land before, and it's we did geese but not ducks, and boy, I heard you describe it the other day. You're like, there's just nothing any prettier than mallards in the sunlight coming in and landing on the dry field. Cornfields. It's just fascinating to me because we just don't have that.
Yeah, and I didn't have it growing up as a kid. I had it later on in the southern part of Michigan. But yeah, you're right. The Central Flyway, we have it in droves. We have it all over the place, from Colorado, parts of Wyoming, not everywhere, Montana, Kansas, Nebraska, Oklahoma. Yeah. All that stuff. Yeah, it was fascinating. We did a hunt in Oklahoma in January, and we tried to do cranes, but there weren't a lot of cranes around, so we did some little geese, some specks, and then we had a couple dryland duck hunts. And it was, it wasn't just mallards; it was gadwalls and teal and pintails.
A lot of widgeon out there.
Lots of widgeon.
Lots of widgeon. Brennan Hutching is a really good friend of mine, and he's a great. You ought to get him on your podcast.
Okay.
Actually.
Okay.
He's awesome. Yeah. He's from Beaumont, Texas, and he's got Alberta Waterfowl outfitters, and then he also spends. He's with Goose Reapers. He spends the winter out in Oklahoma, and so Oklahoma. Man, when it's right, it's right. I love it.
We didn't hit it quite right. There was birds, but we didn't hit it quite right. The big shot of their birds had pushed on through Texas and into Texas, and there was a bunch of birds staged up north of them still, and it just was kind of in between. But I could see, just driving around the little bit of hunting we did, I was like, this could be epic down here.
So let me ask you this. So what was so fascinating to me when we started hunting out in Oklahoma is the cattle ponds. These mallards are sitting on these cattle ponds. It's like 1,000 birds on an acre cattle pond. And, where we're from, they would never do that. It's just a completely different environment. It's fascinating. And I was so taken by that. I got to tell you, I like hunting cattle ponds. That's a good time.
And it's especially a good time for your dog, because I don't know. Oh man, you talk about easy cleanup, easy mop up.
Easy.
I get my
for young
dogs.
dogs.
Oh yeah. I get my dogs out here that are used to, if they don't get it in 30 seconds, it's gone. Out in that fast water. So they get in a pond, and it's like, I could handle this. Yeah. Especially my old dog. He's like, this is cake.
It's great. It's a lot of fun. But I really enjoy that. And then, Canada, in a lot of ways, Oklahoma reminds me of Canada, and the way we hunt. But it's just all fascinating to me.
That's back to what we were saying earlier. That's what's so cool about the diversity of waterfowl across North America, really. And it's fascinating because you can go down south where you guys are, and you can hunt flooded timber, you can hunt rice fields, you can do all that different stuff. You can go and hunt sea ducks, in Alaska or the Pacific Northwest or the East Coast. You can hunt, in the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes, you've got phenomenal wood duck and black duck hunting on beaver ponds, in the middle of the woods, or big wide open, diver duck hunting with layout boats. You come out here, you've got, fast water and hot and geothermal creeks and dry
Yeah,
fields.
that's
and,
on my list. Is the thermal? Yes, yeah, the little creeks. Yes, I want to do that. I also
Right here.
want to get out and hunt the bighorn. Do you hunt the bighorn?
Yes.
Yeah.
We haven't. So there's two versions of the bighorn. There's the bighorn in Montana, which is what most people understand.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, but the bighorn originates in Wyoming, and it's.
I did not know that.
Yep, it originates in Wyoming, and it's called in its headwaters. It's called the Wind River, and when it comes out,
I've been to, okay.
Yeah, when it
Go ahead.
comes out of Wind River Canyon at the town of Thermopolis, it changes its name to the Bighorn.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so the story goes that there were two groups of fur trappers or explorers, one going down the river from Montana, or upriver from Montana, and the other one coming down from the Dubois area and in the mountains, and they met right about there at the mouth of this Wind River Canyon. And it's like, oh, we're on the Bighorn. It's like, no, we're on the Wind. This is the Wind, and they're bantering back and forth. It's just like, you know what? We'll just call this the wetting of the waters. And from upstream, it's the Wind. Downstream, it's the Bighorn. It's the same river.
Dang.
Yeah, it's the same river. Yeah.
I've been to the Wind River range.
Yep.
About 20 years ago, we went out and did some fly fishing.
Yep, that's where
it
starts. That's where the Bighorn comes from. Is it comes from the Wind River Range in the south end of the Absarokas and down in there, and just kind of wraps around and goes up north into Montana. But yeah, the Bighorn is phenomenal. It can hold a ton of birds. It really can. Yeah, it can be a lot of fun. But
I want to do that sometime. What would you say now? I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're good. I was just going to transition us into tell us who Marty Roberts is. Tell us about Sporting Life Kennels, and maybe most importantly, tell us about Jim Bob.
Oh yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let's start with Jim Bob.
All right.
And if I tear up a little bit,
I understand completely.
You understand. So, yeah. Just his name makes me tear up. But so when I was 16, so I was in 1982, my parents got me a yellow lab, and I named him Jim Bob. And I don't know why, he reminded me of just a big, farm boy. He was fat, and I just looked at him and said, "You look like a Jim Bob." Anyway, I named you that. And no offense to farm boys.
No, none. No, I think it's great. He was fat.
Yeah, he was. He just anyway. Yeah, I loved him, and he changed my life. I mean, I wouldn't be where I am now without him, and that's the truth. I mean, he changed the trajectory of my life. A puppy did this, and until that time, I started hunting in Arkansas in 1976. I was 12. So, and in that day changed my life forever. I mean, it set me on a trajectory. I have a neighbor that was really good friends with my father. His name was Johnny Tortera. And to this, I can still, to this day, I can see the hunt. I can see the woods. I can see the hole. I can see the birds dropping into the hole. And it was a place over near Wynne, Arkansas, and Murray's Woods, and it's still to this day is a hunting club, I think. But I can, as a 12-year-old boy, and I'm my 50s now, and I can still see the birds dropping. I can just, in my mind's eye, I can still see those birds dropping in the trees on that sunny blue sky day. My first greenhead I ever shot was banded.
What?
Yes. And what are the odds on that?
Oh my goodness.
I know, that's pretty cool. But anyhow, so my father and Johnny Tortera, took me into those woods, and I changed that day. I mean, I loved to hunt before that, but I had never seen anything like it. And mallards and timber has fascinated me all of my life, like nothing else. I mean, I love turkey hunting, and I love to fly fish, and those are right up there with it, but or any kind of fishing. But that started the path that I'm on now. And then when I was in high school, I got Jim Bob, and he was an American, kind of came from some American field trial lines, and had a ton of drive. And, you know, being 16, 17 years old, he was with me all the time.
Right.
All the time. I'd take him with me on dates. We go to the drive-in.
You can finish that burger.
He's in the out of a 78 Ford Bronco. I don't know if you remember those, but those things.
Well, that was the year I was born. That was the year I was born.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say you wouldn't remember those, but you look them up. Those a big old square, you know, and Blazer. Chevy had a Blazer. So anyway, had that Bronco, and so he would go with me, and we'd be out there. Of course, all your friends at the drive-in, and we're walking around, and my dogs just follow me everywhere I go. He's just part of everything we did. So then I trained him. You know, at the time, I used water dog for the first, you know, till he's about 6 months old. And you know, now I look back, and I think that book is, you know, there's a lot better methods now, but that got me started. And then when he was about 6, 7 months old, we sent him off and had him force fetched, and then I got him back, and I finished him myself, and just reading books. You know, we didn't have videos, and I didn't have a mentor. It was just me figuring it out, and it worked. You know, I look back now, I think, well, if I had him now, would he be doing a lot?
I know. I think about mine first one too, and it's the same thing, right down to the water dog book. It's the same thing.
Yeah. He got it done, and it was pretty watching him, but man, he had so much more potential than I gave him.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then, you know, he kind of got there was a veterinarian in Memphis, still there, Chuck Halford, his name, Spence Halford's father. So Spence has Rolling Thunder game calls. Okay.
Yep.
So Chuck would call me up occasionally and say, hey, he really liked Jim Bob. He'd say, hey, I got a guy that got a really nice female. I'd like to, you know, he wants to find a stud dog. I told him about Jim Bob. I said, okay. Of course, back then, you know, we didn't health check our dogs. You know, there wasn't any x-rays. We would just say, all right, you got a dog, let's breed them, you know, and it worked out. But I mean, it's what we do. So generally speaking, I keep a puppy or two off that, and I would train it, and then I would sell it. And so I did that pretty much for the next several years, just as a hobby. Okay. So I went into construction. I really wanted to do a kennel back when in my 20s, but I didn't have the means to do it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you know, and now knowing what it takes to do it right, you know, there's no way I could have done it. So I went in construction, I was a home builder for a long time, and I kept going on the dogs, always had dogs around, always training. And then we, and so this went on for, you know, so then in the early 2000s, we moved to Oxford, Mississippi, to do some condo projects. And then that in the 2007, we started seeing, hey, something's fixing to, you know, go wrong here. So saw 2008 coming, and I sat down with my wife, and I was like, you know, I've got this idea. Imagine building homes for 20 something years and then sitting your wife down saying, hey, I want to train dogs. But you know, to her,
you're gonna end up living with them too.
yeah. So, you know, she trusted me, and she said, let's do it, you know. And so I sat down, put a business plan together, and started looking around for property, and just dove in.
Yeah.
Made trips. I made trips over to Ireland, and made some contacts in Scotland, and then England, and I started bringing dogs over, and yeah, so that's when it started in 2008. And then we just started going from there. We bought, my veterinarian is named Lee Payne. Okay. He would be a good person, I think, to have on your podcast. Actually.
Okay. I'll tell you what we'll do is at the end of this, I'll have you send me a list of people that with contact information that you think would be good, because I'd love to talk to these folks.
Lee Payne, my veterinarian, is known throughout the Southeast. I mean, he's a reproductive specialist, and he's as good a veterinarian. And I'm so blessed that he is here. And he's 10 minutes, 15 minutes from my house, and people come to him from like hours, 8-10 hours away. But here's a funny story. So he and I got friends, and he had this 42-acre farm about 5 minutes from where we built this house. And so he knew I was on the search, and we were talking, and I said, man, and I'd come out to his farm to work my dogs. And I said, man, your farm would be the perfect place for a kennel. He goes, you know what? He goes, my wife really loves your house. And he said, yeah. He goes, are you thinking what I'm thinking? This is the true story. So literally we bought each other's houses right there.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, we did. And we passed each other in there. So he's only like a mile away as a crow flies. But we passed each other in the moving truck on the highway and just switched. Anyway, I thought that was pretty funny. But
no, that is a great story. Oh, yeah. That's the crazy thing though, is you don't know. That's why I asked the question, who you are. Tell us about yourself, because I'm not going to be able to dig that stuff up. Facebook stalking or Google jockeying is going to show me that. Those stories are awesome.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, we just laugh about it. I saw him yesterday. He was breeding a dog for me, but so that's a good story. And then so we pretty much went in, and there was a barn, and we built it out, and and so for about the first year, I did everything myself, fed, cleaned up, trained. I'm training out in the range store. I remember this because I didn't pay myself anything for the first year, and we were living off savings. So I'm walking around and I'm healing a dog in a range store, and I'm just soaking wet, and I'm thinking, what have you done? I was like, what? I said, Marty's folly. That's what I kept repeating to myself. I was like, this is insane. but word started getting around, and I know a lot of people in Memphis, they started sending us stuff. And then I really got started with started dogs. I started having puppies and training them and selling them. And it just built from there. And I've been very blessed because the University of Mississippi's here. And so I've had a great labor pool, And through the years, it just seems like to me, it was just, I know it was meant to be. I think I'm here for this reason. I think I'm here to I think I'm here for the purpose that I was intended to be here. Now, I'm not saying I'm special. I'm not saying I'm better than other people. I just think that for whatever reason, I found something that God intended for me to do. Years from now, maybe it's something else, but I definitely, from the time I was a teenager, I had this longing to do this. And I just can't believe it happened, honestly, but it happened, and we're very, very blessed. And I've had lifelong friendships with a lot of the kids that have worked here. And one of them, David Spalding, was with me for about 10 or 11 years, and opened his own kennel last year up in Middle Tennessee, Harpeth River Kennels. I'm really proud of him. He's a great guy, great trainer. And I watched him grow up. He came to work for me. He was 19 years old. And he left last year. He said he was 30. So he worked for me for 11 years. Yeah. I mean, I was really sad when he left, but it was time, it was time. And he needed to spread his wings and go, and he did. And I'm very proud of him. But I've had anyway. I've had lots of good relationships with kids that work for me, and still do. And they come and go, and I'm proud of them. I mean, I don't remember all of them, but the ones, there are probably 20 that I'm still in contact with many of them. Right. And good friends, but it would have been hard to do, I feel like, in another area because of this smart labor pool, and of mostly young men, but I've had some outstanding young women as well. I've had some great women trainers, women anyway, in their 20s. They're all boys and girls to me. I'm so old now, but I've had some great girls, but it's mostly boys. But then they get to come here, and they love the outdoors. The majority of them love the outdoors, so it beats the heck out of waitressing in a restaurant or working somewhere in town. And most all of them love dogs. Otherwise, they wouldn't be out here. And so it's hard. It's hard work. I mean, it is hard work. And like right now, it's 100 degrees. And by lunchtime, it's a ghost town. Everybody's
inside.
We've been out early and trained, and the guys have gotten their stuff done, and it's miserable. And next week's supposed to be all in the hundreds, like 100, 102, and that's not even the heat index. So really hot. But anyway, it's a good living. It's a lifestyle. It's not a 9-to-5 job. It's 24/7. And she gets tough. It's tiring. It's hard to get away. It's not something that I think a lot of people feel like that we play with dogs all day. People mean it, they mean it in a sweet way, but they're like, oh man, I wish I could work out here and just play with dogs all day. And I'm like, it isn't playing with dogs all day. You better love it. You got to love it. If you don't love it, you're going to burn out. You're going to burn out. So
it's gotta be a passion. It's gotta be something that
it's a passion, and to a degree it's an obsession, because I think about them all the time.
Right.
If I'm driving, I'm thinking about, well, how can we fix this problem with this dog? Or I wonder about this breeding, or I wonder about that stud dog. It mostly has to do with just, I think, drills in my head. I'm always thinking of drills, new and better drills. And I know you do this as well, but you're driving down the highway, you look over, and there's a beautiful cattle pasture with ponds, and I'm sitting there going, oh man, I could run that. I could run that. And, I just love seeing, especially in the South. I don't know what it's like out there, but I'm always, it's always with me. I'm just always thinking about it.
There's a lot of the countryside out here, unless you're in the mountains, is a lot of sagebrush. It's a lot of rocky, really tough, inhospitable, dry country. And honestly, until the snakes go to bed, I don't really take my dogs out in it much, just because it's not worth it. And my young dog, he's a Mississippi boy. And
Hondo. Yeah.
And
that.
That dog, the first time I saw him do this, Marty, I was like, what is he doing? But we were out running him in the desert, and in the cool of the day when it's cool or whatever, and just going for a walk, getting exercise. And he's running along, and all of a sudden he gets super birdy, and he starts sniffing around, and I'm looking, and I'm like, there's not going to be a snake right there. What is he doing? Then I see him eating something. I'm like, what do you got? He's so thirsty out there that he's biting chunks of prickly pear off and eating them.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Oh.
And the only thing I could think of is when he gets birdy like that, he smells the water in that prickly pear. He smells that in there, and he's like, he hones in on it, and he right.
And
takes little nibbles out of it. And he's getting better because I'm like,
get him in his mouth and stuff?
Yeah. And the thing about prickly pear is the spines, and when they get exposed to like water or something, they get soft. And I'll bring him over, and I'll pull him out. But honestly, they just kind of, we get them in our feet and knees and hands when we're hunting big game all the time. And it's not like cholla cactus or some of that nasty stuff that they have down in Texas. It's fairly benign. It's not comfortable. It's not comfortable. And he's starting to learn, like, I don't think I want to bite that, But I'm like, you never know. You never realize how many edible things exist in the world until you take your labs for a walk.
Oh man. And I always tell people if there's a way to get hurt or die,
oh man,
the puppy's gonna find.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to. They're like toddlers, man. I mean, you have to watch them. You don't let your toddler go stick his finger in the plug or swallow whatever that pill is. You're constantly watching. But
I've always got my dogs in the corner of my eye. Always, even my old dog. Even my old dog, who's 10, Mackinaw's like, and he's super chill. I mean, he's got more self-preservation instinct than any dog I've ever seen. It's like you watch him do things and you're going, dang, that was pretty smart. But even him, I'm watching him all the time. It's no different out here than horses. Horses, same way. If there's something that they can find a way to hurt themselves on, they're gonna do it. They're gonna do it. Oh yeah, they're terrible. They're terrible. A mule's a lot more like my old dog. Puppies especially can get you. Oh my goodness, they're like little kids, man. You got to have one eye on them all the time.
I'll tell you an interesting story about a puppy. So about 5 years ago, we sold a puppy to a lady in, I think she was in Illinois. And so she calls me up, or she may have emailed me. I don't remember. She was saying the puppy's having seizures. And so obviously we were very concerned. Puppy was probably 3 months old, Okay. So I talked to Lee Payne, my veterinarian, and we kind of went through, what's the dog do? What's the course of the day look like? Where they live? What's the backyard look like? He goes, I think it's snails. He goes, I think that dog is licking snails. And I said, so I called her, told her, and she was, well, we do have snails. We have slugs here. She goes, I'll try to keep a better look. Well, about a week or two later, she calls me. She's all bawling. She goes, he's doing it again. I said, well, I tell you what, why don't you bring him? Just bring him to me. I'll give you another puppy, and I will take him, and we'll see what we can do with him. Well, she brought him down. Obviously, it was painful for her. She said she didn't want another puppy because she felt like it was something in the environment, and we got that puppy here. So he never had a seizure ever again. He was perfectly fine, and he'd been licking those. It's like, who would have thought that?
He liked the psychedelics.
True.
That's crazy.
Crazy.
It's funny you say that though, because I walk around my yard and we're in a really arid environment out here, but this year's been exceptionally wet, and everybody's, we've got in-ground sprinklers and all that stuff to keep yard whatever, but it's just now turned on hot. So we've had mushrooms in our yard, some toadstools, different kinds of mushrooms pop up, which is, I mean, it's fairly uncommon in Wyoming, but there's certain places where you get it.
Yeah.
Well, I had a German Shepherd years ago that got into mushrooms and ate them when I was trout fishing with him on this little trout stream out here. Yeah. And he ate a bunch of them. And I rushed him to a vet. Of course, most of our vets out here, especially rural areas, are large animal vets. So they see all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And they pumped him full of charcoal and gave him some that's the stuff you take for like an upset stomach, and sent him home with me. And I said there's nothing else we can do, and they're like, well, he'll either be dead in the morning or he won't.
That's a large animal vet for you.
Yeah, exactly.
They're just matter of fact.
I'm thinking, well, okay, and I knew they were right, because it's like, what if he's got it? If he poisoned himself bad enough on the wrong kind of mushroom, and he's dead, there's nothing I can do for him. And he lived. He was okay. but I'm constantly picking mushrooms out of the yard, and I got a toddler too. I got a little boy that I can see him eating them too, you know. So it's like,
oh yeah.
But yeah, your constant vigilance. It's constant vigilance with
especially when they're puppies, but even when they get older, you know. So anyway, you know, we basically, you know, we parent them, you know. I mean, they're not children, but we parent them, and they look to us to take care of them, you know, and that's what we, you know, just switching gears a little bit on the way of dog training. You know, you have the whole, you've got sort of not extreme. You got the extreme right, and you've got the extreme left, where, you know, people are all positive, you know, and they think you stay positive all the time. And you have the other guys that just, you know, crank and yank them around and fry their brains out, you know, and why was I saying that? We were just talking. Oh, so then you got this. So people will say, well, you know, you need to be the alpha. And I don't particularly like that word. I think you just need to be their parent. They need a leader. And whether the people that are all positive reinforcement trainers that say that, you know, they need a leader. They just need a leader. When they're in a pack, you put 4 dogs together, one of them is going to be the leader.
Right.
You put 2 dogs together, one of them is going to be the leader. And maybe minute differences if you put 2 or 3 together, but one of them is they're going to fall in line behind somebody. And that doesn't mean that leader hurts the others, but they look for leadership. So along the same roads with dog training, you know, I don't necessarily think there's an alpha, but you definitely they need a leader, you know, and a parent. And that's the way I look at it, you know. And I guess go ahead.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, in the case with the dogs that come here to train, I don't necessarily, you could change the verbiage on it. We're teachers at that point, you know, but we're still their leader, you know, just like you send your kid to school. That teacher isn't going to hit them over the head. 1 or 2 may hit me over the head. I deserve it. Just kidding. But they're going to, you know, you're going to toe the line, but you could be a gentle leader. You don't have to, you know, I mean, you can have it both. My philosophy on dog training is you meet in the middle, right? That's how I look at it. You know, we use food reward training, you know, extensively on puppies and up through, you know, 6 months of age. And then we'll move over to using food and prong collars. And then we'll go from that to using food and electric collars, and then we'll fade the food. Or if we're training something new, we'll, something that, you know, maybe they're not super confident in, we'll bring it back out and then we'll fade it. And the dogs are super happy, you know. I don't know how we kind of shifted gears quickly with this, but
no, you're good. I love it. Just the natural flow of the conversation is perfect.
Yeah. So I want happy dogs. That's something I've always told my employees, tell my clients. That's one thing I think that we're known for is our dogs. They're happy. They mind and they work well, and they're great dogs. But I don't want to see, if you line a dog up on a blind, I don't want to say dead bird back and the dog just walks or canters or barely just goes because he's been stopped so many times and pushed around that field. When I say back, I want him to burn out of there like a greyhound, you know. And because look, it's not all about you. It's about them too. This is their joy in life, right? And so be a good leader, be a good teacher, show them what you want and go and enjoy. I mean, the reason you have the dog is because you want to enjoy the dog, you know. Well, you can have both. You can have a great dog, you know, great companion and great hunter. If you want to run hunt tests, but they, you know, you don't have to break a dog, you know. Our job is to build them up. That's not to say you never correct them. We will correct, but there's a difference with, just like with a parent, there's a difference in a balanced correction and somebody being a bully, you know. I mean, So anyway,
I've got one to bounce off of you. I'm at the point where I've looked through. You were kind enough to hook me up with subscription to your Retriever University.
Yeah.
Which I went through the first few lessons and went through, well, obviously the first stuff. I mean, I'm kind of looking at what's applicable to me right now at the moment.
Right. Yeah.
And we're kind of at that point where I call it playing baseball, where Hondo's on the place board at the pitcher's mound. And then we're placing memory marks.
Right. Yeah.
At first, second, third base, and lengthening them out to make it more difficult, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's kind of where we're at with him. And lots of obedience work. That stuff never ends, right? Making sure he's steady. Yeah. Here's one. I'm out in the yard working the other night, and he's, crisp. Marty, he's just bam, bam, bam. Just nice. Crisp, perfect drills. And I never used back with him, back to get him to go backwards. I never used that command till the other night. I've done the left, right. We've been doing a lot of that work. But right from the get-go when he was a puppy, playing with him in the house. If I wanted him to go backwards, I'd say back, and I'd just put my hand up in that motion. Yeah. And just kept going. So I'm like, I wonder if he'll do it. Holy crap. He just did. Bam! Just nice, perfect. So this is going on for 20 minutes, and I'm about ready to take a break. So I'm like, 20 minutes is a long time, even for a 15 or 16-month-old dog. So let's take a break. So I go inside, I grab my wife, and I said, hey, can you come out and film this? I want to put this, on social media, do whatever. Yeah. First thing he does, I set him on the place board, and she's standing on the patio watching him, filming with the phone, right? Yeah. And my dogs are house dogs. They live in the house. They're family dogs. Yeah. So he's doing this. She's behind him, and he's going.
He's looking back over his shoulder.
Yeah, he's looking at her, and she's not saying anything. She's just standing there.
Yeah.
And I'd send him sloppy, Sure. I sent him right. He goes back. I'm like, what are you doing? And then he's like, runs a big circle around me and comes back. And I looked at him like, shut it off. Hey, listen,
about the time that you should never brag about your dog or your children, because they will make you, along those lines. That's a great story. And you think about this. You've had somebody's dog for months training, and they come to get the dog, and you've been telling them how good they've been doing. And then they get there, and you go out to the field, and the dog, we've gotten to where we say, okay, here's what's going to happen. For about the first 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, he's going to make mistakes, and he's going to be thinking about you, and he's going to be torn between me and you when I'm trying to demonstrate stuff. And I promise you 90% of them, they're at some point in those 10 minutes, they're going to act like a ding dong and just do something silly. But because I've already prepared the owners, they're fine. I said, if he comes over to you, I said, if he brings you that bumper, I said, just ignore him. I'll come get him. And then, I've had things like the dog will be like crashing the water, doing great. And they get there and the dog won't even want to get in the water because it doesn't want to leave their side, it's so infatuated. I say, I promise you, I would not have. But anyway, and of course we do a lot of social media. So like you were filming, right? Your wife is filming, and so a dog will do something cool. We're like, all right, hey, come here. We're going to film this. This is good. And of course they don't do it again.
Right. Exactly.
It's just, So
I just went through a webisode today for the YouTube channel. There's a couple of hunts that we ended up splicing together from last season, and the ice got really bad. So we had some pretty good shelf ice. My old dog does not like ice. He doesn't like to go off of it. He'll do everything in his power to figure out a way not to have to jump off the ice into the river. But I looked at it and I was like, we got lots of room to get him out. There's no blockages in the river. It's shallow. They don't have to dive off into deep water. They can just jump off and it's shallow. You know, we're okay.
Yeah. What river is this?
This is tributary of the Bighorn. I could tell you about it. I could tell you about it. I have to kill you.
Yeah. As soon as I said that, I thought I shouldn't have asked you.
No,
that.
You're good. You're good.
No, I was just wondering if it was, you're talking about a pretty big river then.
It's good size. Yeah. It's probably 60 to 70 yards across, and it's fast. I mean, it's a trout stream is what it is. It's fast. In fact, I see comments all the time on hunt videos. They're like, I can't believe you're putting your dogs in that. And it's like, it looks worse than it is. But if you get guys that aren't used to hunting that way, it is intimidating. And there's places on it where it's like, no, I won't put a dog in there. There's too much. The water's too deep, too fast. There's too many trees in it. And it's just not a good scenario. Anyway, let's talk about stuff that you're just embarrassed of. I pulled this up and I'd forgotten about this. My other buddy brought his dog, and she's not steady at all, but she'll get ducks out of the water all day long, and that's what we needed on that day. And I was like, all right, not ideal, but we're going to make it work.
Yeah.
So she's taking off and getting in the water. She's not scared of the ice. She's plowed in, and she's like 12 years old, just still crushing it. And it's a big old fat thing. And I think it helps her in that cold water, but anyway. So my cheater gangster of a veteran lab would wait for her to bring the duck back, and then he'd take it from her. And he's waiting on the ice, and he'd take it away from her. Well, the first couple times she did it, she didn't want to give it up. So they're retrieving. Luckily, it was a big, nasty merganser, but they're retrieving the same duck. I mean, side by side, like they're in a harness together, And I'm like,
yeah.
You got to cut that out of the video. You can't. But it's like, I don't care how good your dog is, how much time you spend on them. They're still a dog. They're still going to make mistakes, like we all do, like our kids do, I
always tell people, I said, look, there's not a perfect dog in the kennel. Okay.
Yeah.
But there's not, I don't know a perfect person.
Right.
And especially me. I said, so every dog I've ever had personally, every dog we've ever trained, they have there's so much good and some bad, some quirks, and they're just like, so do we, we're flawed. Dogs are flawed. We're flawed.
Absolutely. Well, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask you, as long as we're on the topic of training, because that was how I got hooked up with having you as a guest, was through Chad Carman.
Chad,
and he said that he had used your program, Retriever University, and that was something that I just referenced. But I looked at it as a curriculum, and I started off, Hondo was a Southern Oak dog. I started off using their curriculum with Cornerstone stuff. And it's worked well. I saw some parallels in there in yours. But tell us how you came up with that. Tell us more about it as a product.
Well, so originally I had ideas. I had an outline for a book. So and I still will probably, hopefully, if I find the discipline to write. So anyhow.
There's still something about having that hard copy in your hand.
Oh, dude, I'm a reader. And,
me too.
I want to write, but anyway, that's what we were doing. Had the outline, and I'd spent quite a long time putting all this together. And then in 2016, we got an idea for a TV show, and I got hooked up with some young videographers. And so then they came out and they were doing, I'm skipping around, but I met them because we were kind of flirting around with the TV show idea. Then I said, look, I've got this book outline. I think I want to do DVDs. And so they came out and they started filming for me. And Travis Mosler was one of the videographer. He's a very talented young man, but anyway, he just, it wasn't like the third day we were filming. He said, DVDs are basically going to die quickly.
Dead. Yeah.
Dead. And he said, they're dying.
Did you have Preacher in those videos?
Yeah.
So, I remember those videos. I remember where, I don't know where I would have seen them, maybe YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah, Now we've got Waypoint TV. We actually did film a TV show for 2 seasons, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But
Okay.
but they but anyway, so we're out and standing out in the field, and Travis said, have you ever heard of a online course? I said, no. He said, well, that's where everything's going. And this was in probably 2017, 2016. I don't remember exactly. I think it was 2016. So I said, what is it? He goes, well, there's some sites, and he said, you need to look at this place and that place. And then we started looking at it, and then I thought, okay, yeah, I can do that. I can take the outline for this book. And sort of, the thing is with us, we're using this stuff. Okay. This isn't something I decided, hey, let's make an online course, and then I'm gonna, I'm just gonna make stuff up as we go along, because I have had, for me to scale as a trainer, I have to have other trainers here. I can't train 40 something dogs without losing my mind. So I started teaching and training college students, and I have flow charts, and I have a system, and it works very well. And if they just follow that, then I can take that same system and I can share it with others. Okay. And it's worked really well. It's we've probably trained 1,500 or more dogs here. I hadn't really kept up with it, but I've trained a lot of people and clients as well. So it was started off as a book outline, went to a DVD that lasted for about a week. And then the youngsters said, no, this is what you need to do. And then I just, we started filming, and I learned a lot about filming. When you first are standing in front of the camera, you freeze, and it was very strange at first, but we got the hang of it. And then over time, I had we kind of split off with them, and then I had Ole Miss, University of Mississippi has a film school, and so some guys from the film school came out and started filming. McLean McGuire, he's actually in, I think he's in Idaho right now. Great kid. So they came out with his friends, and they filmed about probably the freshman course, sophomore course, and then they left because they graduated. And then I'm sitting here going, oh crap, I'm sitting here and I didn't know what to do. So not much went on for about 6 months or so, and then Jake Orlich was working for me. And this is also a cool story. So Jake's working in the kennel staff, okay? And so one afternoon late, he just got through cleaning up, and he said, well, Mr. Marty, he goes, I'm going to head on. Is anything else I can do? And I said, well, if you can film and edit, you're golden. He goes, oh, I can do that. And I said, what do you mean? He said, my whole senior year, he said, we made movies. And he goes, I can do that. So he picked up the mantle and filmed junior class, the junior and senior courses.
Okay.
Well, a lot of the junior senior courses. And then he graduated, and then Sam Roberts started working for me, and he just had never filmed before, but he said, if they can do it, I can do it. And he got on YouTube like all of them, everybody does, and learned how to do it. I'm behind about a dozen films right now. I've already filmed some for, we're getting ready to add some, especially to the finished courses. But anyway, the whole thing is just pretty much came into fruition with the help of college students filming, and it's been fun. And then like Jake Orlich, the young man that asked me if I needed any help, right? So now he's in it full time. It was not even his major, but he enjoyed filming so much that he now he is a full-time content creator, videographer. And it started with that one conversation of him asking me if I knew anything to do. Isn't that hilarious?
Oh, it's just how life works. You know, I'm 44 years old, and the one thing I've learned is you don't ever know where something's gonna lead. You know, where I see it as divine intervention. I see it as you don't ever know where God's gonna point you and what He's gonna do for you.
No, you don't.
And
no.
I look at this, what I'm doing now. You know, I'm sitting in my office here as an editor, and I was a school teacher and a coach. And all of a sudden now I've been an editor for the largest Western hunting publication for 5 years. And then the Wingmen thing was a conversation on a duck hunt. You know, duck hunting was just something to do after big game seasons were over. I mean, it's a passion, don't get me wrong, but it was like, yeah, it'd be kind of cool if we did something, you know, like a magazine for waterfowl.
Yeah.
And it was like, here we go. And this is what it's turned into, is a podcast and a video series and all these different things. And if I wouldn't have had an open mind, if Jake wouldn't have had an open mind enough to say, what else can I do for you, Mr. Marty?
Yeah.
I mean,
he and I laugh about it all the time. I mean, what is the Upland Project? What's the name of it? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the Upland Project is kind of like what we do here at Wingmen, but it's upland focused. Right.
So he's worked with them. And he's worked for various outfitters around, and it's very interesting how that kind of came to be. But I agree. I think things happen for a reason, you know.
Right.
But back on Retriever University, I divided up, into 4 classes, and I have puppy, preschool, and freshman together.
Right.
So puppy, preschool, and freshman, they're together, and so that's pretty much going puppy up through about 6 months of age, and then sophomore picks up where you're solidifying obedience, right? And then we're going into and then we go into some force fetch, e-collar conditioning, which I love both of those when they're done right. And like on our force fetch into things, they're on the table and they're wagging their tails, and we're using food as we add pressure, and so it works very nice. It overlays.
So explain then, what is the purpose of force fetch? Why do you force fetch a dog?
Okay, that's a great question, and it's multifaceted. It's not any one way, any one reason. But I'll say this: I think they've been force fetched for so long. I'm talking about the American field bred Labradors, that a lot of them don't necessarily have a good natural hold. That's not to say they're not rock stars. I'm just saying that a lot of them will tend to come in and drop it. Mm-hmm. And so where I found it, like it'll take a soft dog and it'll make them bolder, and it'll take a bolder dog and it'll put you in charge. It teaches them to go when sent, and so it overlays horse fetching and overlay with the e-collar conditioning. And so now I can do what's called indirect pressure. If I have a no-go and they don't get in the water, I can give them light stimulus and they'll go. If they pop, I can call them back in, give them light stimulus. The e-collar and the force fetch kind of overlay each other. So now they understand that, hey, if you run out and pop, I'm not going to give you the cast. I want you to come back. I'm not getting on to them. I'm saying, no, here, they come in, give them a little indirect pressure, send them. It just has, it helps clean up a lot of problems. Now, having said that, I know you've got a British dog, and in a lot of the British genetics, you don't have to. You get a more natural hold, but it's really, for me, it really is about more than the hold. It's just, it cleans up stuff. And when you start doing you deal with other breeds, it lets you train across the board and get a consistent product.
Okay.
And you're not having to, and on the British side of things, the biggest thing for me is, and we're training a lot of dogs, so we're able to get through it quicker. And also it enables me to be able to force later on. And I'm not talking about hurting a dog. I'm just talking about, you're going to go because I tell you to go.
Right.
So if somebody says, well, I've never had a no-go on a dog, well, you hadn't trained enough dogs. If you hadn't had a dog that you said, dead bird back on the edge of a lake and they don't want to get in, you hadn't trained enough dogs. And so that immediately tells me that you just hadn't trained enough, because you're going to see it.
Right.
You train enough, you're going to see it. Well, I can take force fetch and overlay that, and now I can tell them to go, and they'll go. And if they don't, I can give them a little correction. And I'm not talking about hurting them. And you send them. Now I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were saying, I was like, so you don't force fetch. So what do you do if dog gives you no go? He goes, I pick him up and throw him in the water. And I was like, well, that's good. Yeah, that I'm sure. We both started laughing. He goes, yeah, that's what I did for years. He goes, I don't now. He goes, I force fetch and I use e-collars. And he goes, the dogs are much happier. And he goes, and I'm happier because I don't lose my temper.
Yeah.
And so it's just how we choose to do it. I used to be scared to death of it. When I'll tell you this, and this is the truth. So going back in the early 80s, when I decided I was going to force fetch some of my own dogs, and I was scared to death, that I'd hurt them. And I didn't, but I was scared I would. And I think a lot of people are scared of it. Right. And I think a lot of people probably need to get help doing it, because there's so many idiosyncrasies with it.
Right.
Not just one way of doing it. There's just not. I mean, I have a basic plan, and then we've got a lot of little rabbit trails. And in the end, what we want is a real happy puppy that will hold, fetch and hold, and I don't have to correct it in the field. As far as dropping stuff, it just makes them more reliable, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's interesting, because what I've started to do with it is I'm kind of at that point and just watching stuff, watching Cornerstone and watching Retriever University, and just I've been real gentle with it. I've been real easy, real gentle. Hondo's pretty. He likes to play. He brings a bumper back and he's constantly shifting it in his mouth.
Yeah, right.
And he won't drop a bumper,
but he mouths it.
And I'm trying to get him just hold, and I'm repeating that hold. Right. When he comes to me, I've started just holding his mouth,
closing his mouth,
closing his mouth and being gentle with him, not hurting him, and not, but hold. And then as soon as he holds it, good boy, praising him up big time. But it's funny, I've got a couple of bumpers that are older and they're big, and he doesn't like them. He'll drop those ones. He'll bring them back and drop them. And it's the only bumpers that he does that with. And I just think it's because they're big, they're like the size of a goose, big around. He doesn't like them. And so I'm really working with, okay, we need to learn how to hold these bigger things, buddy, because you're going to be fetching a lot of Canada geese in the future.
It's hard. Those big old dock and goose decoys, it's hard, they're heavy, and they don't give. I love docking dummies. I'm not running them down.
Right.
Or doking, but where a goose will give, they bite down on it. Those bumpers don't. It's solid foam, so they have to figure it out.
Well, and it's heavy. This dog's ridiculous because it's the same dog that'll carry around logs and stuff when we go camping.
Yeah, I know.
It's like, what are you doing? But
so I keep repeating happy dogs. You can have both. You can force fetch, you can use an electric collar, you can have a super happy dog. And I think a lot of people are scared of electric collars because they see the abuse, and there's a lot of people that either are bullies or they're just ignorant and really don't understand what they're doing, or both.
Right.
Yeah,
I've seen them used both ways, obviously, but I've seen e-collars used to great success where it increases the control of the dog. It increases the confidence of the dog, where a dog's like free to make a mistake, and not going to get crushed for it, yelled at, not going to be afraid to come back, stand out there at 50 yards going, I'm not going to come back to you because I know I'm going to get my butt kicked.
Yeah.
I've seen all that.
Here's it's just a tool. I can take a hammer and I can build your house, or I can take a hammer, I can hurt you with it. It's just a tool, but there's a right way and a wrong way using it. But the beauty, here's my favorite things with an electric collar. Okay. And one is dogs 200-300 yards out, just use those distances because those are realistic distances to build up to. You blow the whistle and they slip the whistle, or maybe they got their nose, they started hunting on their own. Instead of taking, maybe they drop their nose, you want to toot, sit, give them a cast, and they ignore you. Then all I got to do is I'll repeat the toot, and then I nick them. And most of the time they just turn, sit, look at me good, give them the cast, and they take off, and they're wagging, their tail's popping, and they're going straight, and they're going where we're supposed to go. So in juxtaposition would say traditional trainers, and I'm not talking about, what is traditional trainers, but let's just go back to someone just using, say, a slip lead or a choke chain, and refuse to use an electric collar because they think it's cruel and inhumane. But then you'll see these, and I know of some, and I'm not going to say who they are. They may or may not be in this country, but they'll yell, and they'll, no, and they'll run out there. And by the time you get 200 yards out, you're really not in a good mood, and they're physically going to correct that dog. And it could be really ugly, right? And I just corrected my dog within a second or two of the altercation, or whatever that may be, where he messed up, and he's happy, and he understands what just happened. He understands, in real time what just happened, and I just got a slight correction for it. And okay, I'm going back, and everything's good. So, I think the modern e-collars are such a phenomenal tool. So phenomenal. So I like to use them, for in the distance. And also, it's great for, if you need their attention in the water, because what are you going to do if they're out there 75 yards and they ignore you? You're just going to yell at them. And a lot of guys probably beat the crap out of them when they finally come in. Or I could say, no, toot, nick, and they turn, good, back, and then indirect pressure. I can use indirect pressure to correct for no-goes and popping. And it cleans it up so fast. The indirect pressure, it's amazing how fast, I can, 90% of the time we can do it with an electric collar on a tee field. Okay. Just a simple tee field, a single tee field. I can clean up that indirect pressure. That popping, and I want them to pop on that field so I can show them. No, we're going to go on. You're going to go on, and you're going to go. I'm telling you to go, and everything's going to be good. And you'll see them. You'll see their little minds thinking through it. They pop, toot, 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 call them back in. I push it a continuous.
So what do you mean by pop?
They run out and they turn and spin around and look at me on their own. I didn't ask them to sit.
Got it.
Okay. So they look to you as a crutch at that point. Okay. So that's a big no-no. I don't like it. I want them to go where I tell them to go. And I want them to stop when I tell them to stop and take the right cast. And with a lot of people, especially people that self-train, the dogs will pop. They'll maybe when you're running to that pile, okay, they probably won't, if you're just running memories, they're not going to usually pop on a memory. But when you're, a walkout blind, but when you're doing a pile and you're sending them, at some point they're going to be like, I don't want, they'll get about halfway out there and they're going to expect you to, because you've been sending them and stopping them, they're going to expect it. And at that point, I can clean that up within a day or two where they won't do that again. And I can use electric collar to do that. And they're still super happy, going. Where if somebody's a traditional type trainer that has that problem, no one's really told me a good solution. I've heard someone say, well, you just then call them in and make it a memory and send them back, walk out blind at that point. Now, I guess that would work, but you can't do that if they're in the water.
Right.
You can't walk out there or swim out there, It's kind of hard to describe, I could show you and I could draw it out and show you, but it's kind of hard to describe, just talking when I'm talking about.
I get it. I got a really clear mental picture of what you're talking about. I'm on, this is my 4th dog. I had one like you did, got a dog when I was a kid, and didn't know what the heck we were doing. And she ended up being phenomenal in spite of us,
Got
another dog that was young, and it was just, I was right out of college with my buddy. She went everywhere with me, even went to work with me, and didn't have her long enough, unfortunately. But she was great. Again, had more talent than I did experience, and I knew what I was doing. So, and resources too, there weren't the resources available back then.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I could picture me exactly what you're talking about. That's my old dog is a lot of, I'm looking at working Hondo, trying not to make the same mistakes I made with the ones in the past. My old dog, as you would say, pops all the time, but he's funny because I didn't have waterfowl when I got him. I lived in a place where there was no waterfowl. There might be some ducks on a stock pond someplace, but it wasn't like here. And so I killed 63 or 64 rooster pheasants over him before he was a year old. And I didn't know any better. I just took him out and let him hunt. He'd fetch birds, he'd find birds. And we had a phenomenal put and take program that the state runs there, and they'd stock.
Is that in Michigan?
This is Wyoming.
Oh, okay.
I was in eastern Wyoming at this point.
Okay.
And they'd stock pheasants every Thursday afternoon on all kinds of different state-owned properties.
Heck yeah.
It was great. And you want to talk about turning a lab into a pheasant dog, an upland dog. I mean, there was no better way to do it because he had so much bird exposure. And he made some ridiculous retrieves. But you want to create an unsteady Labrador as a duck dog, teach them how to hunt upland birds, because they just go, and the bird gets up, they're on it. You don't have cripples. You don't have to worry about cripples because your dog's on it. They got it cleaned up. They're bringing it back already. And
I always tell my customers, not to interrupt you, but you made a good point. We'll dual train some dogs every year where they are waterfowl and upland. We do that. We don't do it a lot, but we do some every year. And I always tell them, if you can, you really need to waterfowl hunt this dog before you start upland hunting them. Otherwise, you're going to unsteady him when he's waterfowl. I think if you get the waterfowl first, then they see how they're supposed to act there. Then you can upland. Then when you return to waterfowl, they're back to okay, and they may try to break a little bit.
But you can correct it if you're paying attention.
You can correct it. But you talking about turning a dog into a freaking bird machine, upland will just turn them on.
And he to this day, I mean, I hunted. I don't do a lot of upland hunting with him now because it's pretty hard on him. But I mean, pheasants, sage grouse, chuckers. I killed everything. You name it. I had that dog. He was a machine. And never, you go to South Dakota with him, you never lose a bird. It's like, it was crazy. But when he was a young dog, taking him to waterfowl, then we made the transition. I moved to an area on the Bighorn River that was ridiculously good duck hunting.
Yeah.
And yeah, steady. Yeah, right. What's that? Is that
Yeah.
you get up to shoot and he's in the he's
Yeah,
marking the bird down, fair catching it when it gets there,
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
didn't lose cripples either. That was one of those things where
I know that's
the river's a different animal though too, because it's you want a dog that's steady, and I learned this the hard way with him. I worked and he's steady now. But it took a while, but I saw it. He broke in a situation where it was dangerous, dangerous to him. Not that he was going to get shot or anything like that. But we were in a spot where I needed to be able to control him more than that. And there were spots that I just flat walk away from. I'm like, I'm not hunting here because I know my dog's going to break, and I can't let him in the water right here. He's not coming out. Once he gets in, he's not coming out. The river's going to eat him.
Dang.
And so you got to have that steadiness. And
they can learn both. They can learn both. But I think you need to err on the side of steadiness.
Yeah.
So in the Dive Bomb Squad Fest this weekend, I did a seminar on steadiness. Mm-hmm. And this one story I used was there was an outfitter. It's a true story. I'm not gonna say who it was, but an outfitter had his own dog, and the dog broke one time, and then the customers are like, and he knocked over some guns. So they said, "Oh man, can you watch him?" He goes, "Yeah, I'll do it." Well, he did it again. He ran down the inside of the A-frame and knocked over guns, and the dog was shot. And he lived, and nobody else was shot. But that's the story I used at the seminar. And I was like, it's kind of like, I would venture to say that, in the real world, a big percentage of the dogs break, and people just let them. And I think it's from poor training. I think it's from laziness on the handler's part for not making sure that if you do have a breaking dog, at least put a stake in the ground and hook him up for his safety and for the other safety. Of course, it's the best thing to do is to train him right and then reinforce it. But at the same time, it's and especially with the guide, it's not easy to do when you're trying to take care of these 10 guys here and your dog's running around. Well, just go ahead and stake him. Stake him out, and everybody's good, and you don't have to worry about breaking dog. But anyway, we're just kind of rattling right now on breaking dog. I think this should be a way of life. I think steadiness should be a way of life with a retriever.
I agree. I agree completely, 100%. So I wanted to ask another question about why British dogs. And what?
Okay, yeah, no. So that's a great question. And I, for most of my life, I had American dogs, and I love them, and I still love them. And we trained a bunch of them. Love them. When I started looking at everything, I wanted to be able to have a product that didn't whine. And that had drive and were really good family dogs. Mm-hmm. So not that you don't have that with Americans, you do. I adore those dogs. But on the what I wanted in my mind's eye was something that, for instance, let me say that we've talked to thousands of people around the country through the years, and one of the things people call me, we talk, is that they don't want their dog fidgeting. They don't want their dog whining in the blind. And they want a dog with an off switch. So, from Hondo, he's probably got an off switch. So you can have both. You can have a dog with as much drive as you need, particularly for hunting, hunt test. Those same dogs are not going to be field trial dogs. and they're probably not going to be running, SRS trials or something, but they're really solid hunters and they're really good family dogs. So that's what I wanted to focus on. I'm not saying they're better. They're certainly not. And I'm not saying they're worse. I mean, there's good and bad with everything. The British dogs on the pros, I think they make really nice hunters, and we've bred ours. Ours are pretty hot. They go, and they can take correction. I think on the cons, a lot of them can be soft, particularly the females, which makes it insensitive. So it makes them hard to train.
Right.
Like we've got one right now. He came from another kennel, which doesn't mean anything because we have some from ours too that we have problems with. But came from another kennel, and if she's switching bumpers, for instance, you say no, she's done. She is done. She won't pick up another bumper. She's done. Now that's really unusual. That's really unusual. But I've bred away from that. But mine you can correct. And they bounce right back, and they're happy and they're fast. I mean, they're fast and they're real stylish.
That's one of the things about Hondo is he's a rocket, man. He is tons of drive, super fast. Mackinac he's a British dog too. I got him from Double T British Kennels when when Haynes owned it, and he's actually a teddy pup. And yep, and a lot like his dad. I mean, he's a black version of his dad. And soft, still has lots of go, lots of drive, but wild, like tempers it with intelligence. And always has, like, does things, he'll look at a situation. I had him went down to clean out blinds 2 years ago, clean out the lease blinds. And I look across the river and there's a bumper floating in the water on the other side of the river. It's just in a little back end, it's not mine, but somebody upstream lost a bumper. So I line him, Mackinac hits the water. He gets about 3/4 of the way to it and he sees it. I'm like, perfect. He goes right to it. He goes to pick it up and he pulling on it. Well, the cord is wrapped around something like root wad. And I'm like, come on, buddy, get it. Fetch it up. And all of a sudden I see him set it down and I can tell he's going to do something. And I don't know what he's going to do. And he switches his grip on it and I could see he chewed the cord off the bumper.
No way.
And brought me the bumper.
That's smart.
And I'm like,
that's smart.
And he's done stuff like that. Had a goose last year, died on an ice shelf. Again, he's not a fan of ice. He takes a straight line, as straight as he can in the current, gets to the ice shelf, and he's trying to pull himself up. 3 years ago, he'd have been able to do that, but now he's not strong enough to do it anymore. He stops, looks downriver, drops back in the water, swims down to the end of the ice shelf, gets out on the ice shelf, trots up, gets the goose, jumps in, brings it to me.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that he does. I think Hondo will probably end up there too, but just differences in personalities. Mac's a little bit more laid back, a little bit softer, but he's smart. Yeah.
So, going back to the differences between the British dogs and the American field bred dogs.
And I like what you said, Marty. We're not running down American dogs because I know
I love them. No,
we train a bunch of them that are awesome dogs. Awesome dogs.
No, they're incredible. We train them all the time. I love them. I do. I love them. But the breeding program I set up was because I was trying to create something that's probably a little more statistically even kill for a family dog. Mm-hmm. Which not to say that they don't make incredible family dogs. It's just because Americans do too. I mean, like I said, my first one, was and for years I had them. I don't have anything against them. I love them, and I think they are definitely have the advantage in some arenas for sure. I mean, you don't. I think in the certainly in the field trial world, it's certainly in the hunt test world, they probably have advantages. I think that there's not enough British dogs have been running hunt tests yet, but we're seeing it more and more. I think they make exceedingly good hunt test dogs, but they're not built for the type of pressure that a lot of trainers that run these trials and tests are used to using. And so they don't particularly like them. And like we talked about, the females can be soft,
Right.
and you have to think your way through training them. I think a lot of guys have a set system that they use. It's compulsion, it's force, and there's nothing wrong with that. But some of them get pretty darn forceful, and the British dogs aren't made for that. They're just not. I mean, they are if it's balanced, but if you're just cranking on them, a lot of them they don't perform as well for the way those guys train. Now, it's not to say that in the other hands that dog couldn't just be great. It's a balancing act. Now, there's one more thing I want to say about that. There's something called an English lab. Okay. Now, an English lab is a show dog. It's just what Americans call a show dog. And so, unfortunately, I shouldn't say unfortunately, but we get lumped into that. The British get lumped into that. And so a lot of people don't know the difference between them, so they're assuming that a British lab is a stocky, shorter, wider, got the odder tail and a bigger head. And that's not it. That's what the Americans call English. So the British fieldbred dog, and if you look back to the original Labradors, just look back, black and white pictures, they look like the modern British lab looks like that.
Yep.
And they also look a lot more like American fieldbred dogs than what we call English dogs.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not to say that some English dogs don't make good hunters, because they do. But if the locomotion of how they move is different, they don't tend to be as fast, and it's not in stylish. It's not what I want personally. If I didn't have British labs, in my breeding program, I'd have American, because I love them.
Right.
But anyway, it's a balancing act. I don't look down my nose. I have preferences for colors, but I won't talk about that. And then I have preferences for other breeds. We train a lot of all different breeds. My favorite's the lab. There's a reason why they're popular, and it's the reason because they're the most consistent. Hands down. And not to say that you can't get some outstanding dogs from other breeds for waterfowl, because you can.
Right.
I just think that, my experience through the years has just been, and we've trained everything. I just think Labradors are consistent. And it's kind of funny, and I'm not going to name breeds, but we have a funny saying here in the kennel, and that is, somebody will bring us a dog, right? And I'm not going to say what it is. And the first thing they say, I'll say, "Why'd you get so-and-so?" And they'll say, "Well, I wanted something different." So that's sort of a joke here, because they'll leave, everybody, and then the staff will walk in and say, "Well, I guess he wanted something different." Well, a lot of times, a handful of months later, they're like, I think I probably should have got a lab, which I know that sounds snobby, but we've trained so many dogs. I just see the difference in the consistency. But I don't know. You may want to edit that out.
I don't. There's nothing wrong with what you said at all. I've got friends that, like, what do you see in those Labradors, and they have other breeds of dogs that I'm like, why would you have one of those? And
right.
I'm with you. I like the consistency. I like the temperament, and not that other dogs can't be great. The German Shepherd I had was phenomenal, and he would actually retrieve birds, believe it or not.
I believe you, and I've got guy I know in Idaho that's got his have picked up thousands, and he's got
Oh yeah,
German Shepherds.
yeah. That
But,
between fetching birds and killing coyotes, that was kind of his thing.
oh, cool.
Oh, he was death on coyotes.
Was he like a coyote dog? He'd go out there and chase him and get him to come back?
No, he'd kill them. He would go out there and grab them right by the middle of the back and snap them like a rag doll. He was 131 pounds.
How could he catch a coyote?
He's fast. He's like a wolf.
Dang.
And so the German Shepherds, I kind of learned this too. You know, the difference, you talk about the English labs versus they're show dogs. And you see the field bred shepherds or service bred shepherds versus show shepherds. Those show shepherds have that slope to them.
Yes.
That's a show dog. Same thing. And the field breds,
that little back end. Yeah.
Yep, they are flat across the back.
They can't move.
They can't move. No.
Yeah.
And the field bred shepherds are a sight to behold. I mean, they are fast. They're like a wolf. That's the closest thing I can compare them to. They're fast.
That's very cool.
They're an amazing animal. They really are. He was an awesome dog. And
you know, I really admire Malinois and Dutch shepherds. But I was told Lee, my vet, I said, you know, I think I'm going to get one and make YouTube videos. You know, I think it'd be fun because that's what, you know, a lot of trainers they'll get them a border collie or
right
or Malinois. And they look like Einsteins. But he looked at me. He said. He goes, yeah, you don't really want to do that. I said, why? He goes, well, they might bite you just for fun. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, they bite for fun. He goes, like you'll be standing there next to them, and the puppy will just reach over and just bite the crap out of you just for fun because that's what they're bred to do.
Yep. Oh man, yeah. I've got some stories about my shepherd doing very potentially dangerous things to yeah, and I look back at this and I'm like, I didn't teach you to do this. I didn't encourage this behavior. I didn't teach her this behavior. Where did you get this? Just bred into them. Just absolutely bred into them. And you got to be careful with that stuff.
I think, you know, from what I understand about German Shepherds, and I don't know a lot, but I think breeding in this country has done a lot to take out what it was a really magnificent animal.
Right.
And not that they're still out there, they are, but you have to be careful.
Yeah.
It's just like any other breed. But like we were talking about, you know, the build of the show shepherds and stuff, you know, I mean, they don't move as well. And from what I understand from protective dog trainers, they can be, their temperaments can be kind of quirky, you know, but at the same time, you can't stereotype all German Shepherds in that any more than you can with the Labradors, you know? I mean,
yes.
It's just bloodlines matter, genetics matter, and what are they breeding for, you know? And that's what you write down a list of what you want, and then you go try to find it, you know?
Yeah.
But I tell you,
go ahead. Let's talk about hunting. We've been talking about dogs the whole time. And I know you're a hunter. I know you love to hunt ducks. So what does your fall coming up look like?
Well, so we're going to Canada in September. Early September this year, we're going to northern Alberta, like the 6th, 7th, and 8th, 9th of September. Hadn't been up there. We're going to a new area. Brendan's got a new area he's really excited about.
Cool. And
so that's there. And then our season really doesn't kick off, you know, till late November.
Right. It's the same here. Ours opens early.
Yeah.
But there's no birds to speak of until Thanksgiving or around Christmas.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Well, it depends on the weather. You know, if you get a really cold, nasty, if Canada and Montana freeze, which is pretty rare for Montana, but if you get we get really cold weather, we'll have birds at Thanksgiving. But December, January, and that's when we really get birds. You just get that cold snap.
Yeah.
But
so then we'll, you know, I hunt primarily in Arkansas, and I've got a group of friends, and I've been very fortunate that primarily hunt as a guest at a really magnificent piece of property, and been hunting over there for about 10 or 11 years, and it's been some of my best friends in the world are over there, and it's there's nothing fancy. I mean, this is a duck camp,
Right.
and the thing is these people could put together Taj Mahal if they wanted to, easy as a clubhouse. I mean, they could do it, but this place has been in existence since the 40s, and when you walk in, it looks like a waterfowl museum. You walk in and you see the black and white photographs all over the walls, and there's a stove, in the middle of the room that heats the whole cabin up. And in the stove, they rebuilt it, but that thing has been there since I think the 60s. They did some rebuilding on it, but it's the real deal. You walk in and there's this warm, moist air into the cabin, and there's cigar smoke and whiskey, and everyone's just happy to see you, and it's just a wonderful. So
that's my kind of place. That's the stuff I like, man.
Yeah, it's neat, and the guys over there are just so cool. It's just everyone has a common love, and a commonality, and it's just this little slice of heaven. But having said all that, Mississippi Delta, we hunt it as well, not as often. I mean, I love Arkansas because I like to hunt woods. So, but Mississippi Delta hunt it as well. I think this year I'll be hunting a few places. I've had some incredible goose hunts this past year. It's crazy. I mean, I only hunted 3 geese 3 or 4 times in the regular, twice in the snow goose season, and then once in the regular season. And very blessed. Had phenomenal. It's just phenomenal. I mean, I'll never have that again. 3 hunts in a row like that. It's just incredible. So yeah, we typically I usually, and then I'm gonna go to Oklahoma for a week with Brennan. So we'll do Canada, and then we'll mostly hunt in Arkansas, or I shouldn't say we, but mostly hunt in Arkansas, and then we'll hunt some in the Delta, and then we'll go to Oklahoma.
That's a full fall. Well, if you get a free week and you want to come out Wyoming, give me a holler.
Man, no kidding. I mean, I've heard up to
Oh, I always invite folks. Some folks make it happen, and like Ramsey Russell last year, I had invited him on the podcast. He came on, we chatted, had a good conversation, had a good time, and then lo and behold, he's like, "Hey, I'm going to be out that way. You mind if I stop in?" And I said, "Well, yeah."
I listened to that podcast. I listened to his podcast. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, we had a really good time, and it was funny because he came early for us, middle of September or middle of November, and I'm like, I don't even know if we have any birds. And for 2 guys, for 2 guns, it was perfect. We had just the right number of birds, and it worked out just right. But
I couldn't have. He's hunting like what, 200 over 200 days a year.
Yeah, it's crazy. He just got home from. He just texted me the other day. He just got home from Argentina and Uruguay and all this. He just globetrots, and fascinating guy, man. The stories again, kind of like Dale. Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
And then I listened to Kevin. I mean, I had 5 hours to ride. Listen to KBD. I really enjoyed that. It's interesting. He's an outdoorsman. You think of him as just a fisherman. The best fisherman in the country probably, but just listen to how they got their land going up in Michigan. And
that was a fun one, because it was one of those deals where it was like, well, you should one of the other guests said, you should talk to Kevin Van Dam. He'd come on the podcast. And I'm thinking, yeah, right. There's no way I'm going to get KVD on the podcast. Sure enough, I was like, holy smokes.
I know. I know. And I was listening to him and I was thinking, his mind, when it comes to bass, it's like you're watching the Tiger Woods, or you're talking to the Tiger Woods of bass fishing. You know,
Yeah.
the guy's just, I mean, he's so, I mean, I'm just a bank fisherman. I like to get a boat, and I like to like hit targets on the bank. You know, I fly fishing, I'm looking for stumps, you know, or spin fishing. I've not evolved into the modern day bass fisherman.
No.
I'm a farm pond guy.
No,
But
I'm a fly fisherman too. It's the same deal. That's the other thing. You want to come out this summer? Come on out. I'll take you fly fishing.
Well, now, hey, you might just show.
You see what's parked over my shoulder.
I saw it. Yeah, I see your. Yeah.
That's a loaner. I loaned that out to one of the guys here in the office. But oh goodness,
I'm going to Wisconsin next month to the Menominee.
Nice.
To go smallmouth fishing.
Yep. Yeah. The Menominee's a great fishery. Yeah.
Yeah. Did that last year. With Tight Lines.
Who are you going with?
Tight Lines Guide Service.
Okay.
Tim and those guys.
Okay.
And went last year, and boy, I mean, you're drifting in a drift boat. You feel like you're in Montana, and you're fishing with top water in these smallmouth, and you're catching smallmouth, and in current, drifting like you were trout. You know, it's great time going back. So I'm really excited about that. But
oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I really appreciate your time, Marty. Well, we've been going on well over an hour now, which is cool.
Yeah.
I like that. And I'd love to have you back on maybe after fall. We talk about hunts and some
that'd be great.
Have some experiences. But I try to close out the podcast with one question, and you listen to it so you know what's coming. If you can only hunt one bird one way, what's it going to be?
It's going to be mallards and timberman.
Yeah, everybody, all you Southern boys say the same thing.
Oh man, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. Nothing like it. If I could never hunt another bird but a greenhead mallard standing in the woods, that's fine. In fact, when I die, I hope I have a heart attack at 80 something years old standing next to a tree. That'd be just fine with me.
Yeah.
You know, if I could have a dog and a duck call, and I don't care if I'm even I don't even care if I shoot. I just want to be there. So that's awesome. I know that's a lot to say, but that's just how I feel about it. So
no, I feel strongly about some of the same things myself. It's always interesting, you know, what people say. Like I said, I'm joking. I'm giving you a little bit of grief about that, but
no.
And if you're from the South, that's 9 times out of 10. That's the answer I get. Mallards in the timber, and I think it's a real intimate type of duck hunting that
is very intimate.
Yeah, the rest of us in the country, if you haven't experienced it, you don't get it. You know, because
intimacy, it's intimate, and you can't really describe it. You just can't. You just have to experience it. You know, and when those birds, when they break through those trees and they're hitting branches and they're landing around you and you're getting splashed, it's surreal. It really is. I mean, it's surreal. But having said that, I love all waterfowl. I mean, it's all great. You know. So
yeah, no doubt. Well, thank you, sir. I really appreciate your time, and I'm going to stop recording.
Hey, thanks, man.